Chapter 13. Cindy couldn't allow her stepmother to win. The stakes were too high, and keeping her father's estate meant more to her than anything. She'd allowed her stepmother to rule over her for far too long. She'd made a mistake. After her father's death, she was lost, and Tom had been there for her. She'd fallen for his seduction, his tricks. But now Cindy was much more experienced. She wasn't a naive little girl anymore. She was fortunate enough that she hadn't ended up in the king's prison. At the same time, she was still embarrassed about her past. King Caspian is perfect, but once he learns of who I really am, he may not want anything to do with me. Besides, he's 15 or perhaps even 20 years older than me, and a vampire. It was just sex. Yes, the most amazing, thrilling, and explosive sex of your life. You said that Tom wasn't even that good, Red was saying, giggling as if she was going a bit crazy. Cindy sighed, knowing her friend was right yet again. Besides, the past is the past. So what? You got into some trouble when you were younger. This shouldn't affect the way he feels about you. Cindy rubbed her forehead, feeling disheartened, because she'd permitted herself to be manipulated by a group of handsome highwaymen. Her reputation in town had been ruined because of her poor choices. The people of Farrington would never accept her as their queen. Now she was eager to repair her relationship with Red. They used to spend most of their time together, and Cindy knew there was more to life than cleaning and cooking. She was finished working as a maid in her own home. Yes, the sex was great, but I have to act now. I bet I wasn't the only one. He may not even remember me anymore. I ran away as soon as he told me the truth, Cindy said, beating herself up over the fact that she'd acted so childish. But it was more than that, too. The clock had been striking midnight. Perhaps it had been a mixture of both. She didn't want him to sleep with other women or forget about her. She only wanted him to desire her. Stop talking nonsense. He was the one who picked you at the ball, where there were hundreds of other ladies, and then he fucked you senseless. Obviously you meant something to him, Cindy, Red said, shaking her head. Cindy had never felt like that about anyone else, and Red was right yet again. The king had chosen her, and she couldn't deny their instant connection. All right, I feel drunk. Good, at least you're less miserable. You need to remember that she doesn't own you. Seriously, marry the vampire king. I want to see her face when you become the Queen of Farrington, Red said, staring at Cindy as if she was expecting her to marry Caspian tomorrow. Moments later, their laughter was interrupted when someone started knocking on Red's front door. Are you expecting someone? Cindy asked her. Red shook her head, looking a bit worried, but went to the door. Is this the residence of Miss... His voice was a little muffled, so Cindy moved closer. She peered through the curtains that separated the kitchen from the porch and saw a man outside, dressed in a navy uniform that Cindy recognized from the castle. Her heart leapt in her throat, because she knew him to be one of Caspian's guards. What's this about? Red asked. King Caspian met a lady at the ball last night, but she ran once she learned who he was, the messenger announced, and Cindy couldn't believe her own luck. Caspian didn't forget about her, and he had sent his guards to search for her. She thought it to be truly romantic. She'd never cared about gestures such as that, but right now warmth was spreading through her chest. Red glanced behind her, most likely sensing that Cindy was listening in. Right, so how can I help you? She asked the guard. The lady left her shoe in his chamber. The king sent a few of us, hoping that we might find her. Her name is Cindy, and he knows she's a resident of Farrington Kingdom. The king would like to speak to her urgently, the messenger explained, showing Red Cindy's high heel. It was still sparkling. Obviously, Martha's magic hadn't faded away completely. Cindy was shocked that she'd been so clumsy last night, thinking that this guard was taking the matter so seriously. She wasn't expecting him to be running around the kingdom with her lace panties. That would have been a complete disaster, not to mention embarrassing. "Hold on a second," Red said, and shut the door in his face before he could say another word. Red had never cared about manners. She walked into the kitchen, looking a bit shocked. "This is amazing! King Caspian is truly spellbound by you. The guards look tired. They must have been out since dawn, riding around the kingdom with your shoe," Red continued. "Darling, you have been a very, very naughty girl." "Indeed I have," Cindy admitted, still not believing that this was truly happening. "Just pretend that you don't know anything. I have to go. I expect he's already been to my house, talking to my stepmother." "Of course. And I would love to see her face now. Hey, hold on. Where are you?" Cindy wasn't listening any longer. She needed to head home, and forgetting her shopping bags, she left out the back door. She wasn't worried about the fact that her stepmother knew she'd disobeyed her, or the fact she'd gone to the ball. Cindy was concerned that Ida had figured out her new plan. She was certain that there wasn't any other girl named Cindy or Cinderella who lived in Farrington. Then she remembered Red's words and slowed down a bit. She didn't have to hurry. Ida was undoubtedly furious that Cindy had managed to charm not the prince, but the king himself. She was impressed that the king had sent his guards to search for her. He was a vampire, but she must have made an impression on him. Either way, she decided that she needed to at least talk to him about their steamy chemistry from the night before. Well, someone is in huge trouble now." Susan's voice slightly startled her. She turned around, spotting her stepsister by the path. "I really didn't think you would go to the ball on your own, Cindy." Teresa stood beside her, and when Cindy laughed, they looked at her as if she'd grown a pair of horns. They were now more scared of her than before, so she was surprised to see them waiting for her outside. Then she realized that she'd left her shopping bags and Ida's dress at Red's house. It didn't matter anymore. She was done taking orders from her stepmother. "Yeah, I spent the night with the king, and he was unbelievable. All while you two were trying to secure the attention, unsuccessfully, I might add, of the vain prince," she said, crossing her arms and walking inside the house, completely amused by their shocked expression. Cindy had to play her hand now. The king wanted her, but she needed him to propose. Perhaps this was happening too soon, but Ida was most likely already planning to stop her from becoming independent. This was her only chance to get the estate back. It was now or never. Ida was in the living room, sitting on the sofa, and holding a cup of tea in her right hand. As soon as Cindy saw her, it was obvious by her expression that her stepmother knew of her encounter with the king. The entire estate had been hers before Ida had come into the picture. She needed to put Ida in her place. Cindy just needed Mr. Johnson, who could help her with the legalities of the estate, her father's will, and, of course, the clause. "Sit down, Cindy. We have much to discuss," her stepmother ordered, but Cindy didn't move. She only folded her arms across her chest, pretending as if she were bored. That only annoyed her stepmother further. "No, I'm fine standing. It's time we talk about the way you've been treating me. You're my guardian, but that's it. I'm 24 years old, and this house still belongs to me. My father left it to me as an inheritance, and you're the one living here as a guest, stepmother," she said, getting everything off of her chest. After all, she was surprised that she felt so empowered. It was a good start. Ida was just staring at her, but Cindy couldn't read anything from her stone-cold expression. Her stepmother was a stern woman, and over the years, Cindy had learned Ida knew exactly how to manipulate people. That was evident in how she'd managed to seduce her father. and within only a week's time she'd had him wrapped around her little finger. The older woman narrowed her eyes at Cindy, and her cheeks had gone slightly pink. "I don't understand how you managed to go to that ball, but that's beside the point now. This family's good name has been ruined. I'm disgusted with your behavior. I thought your father had brought you up better than this. He asked me to make him a promise before he died. He wanted to see you happy, and I was supposed to match you with the right man. Mr. Launders is the perfect candidate. I have no idea what you've been thinking, but the king of this kingdom would never choose you as his life companion or wife, especially after he learns of your reputation," Cindy's stepmother stated, not even taking a breath during her entire speech. The vein on her neck was throbbing, but Cindy wasn't fazed by any of it. Cindy wanted to laugh, but somehow she managed to restrain herself. Her stepmother was insane to think that she would willingly marry a man like Launders. The king was a vampire, but Ida wouldn't allow her to even consider him, because that would actually make her happy. Perhaps she could move past the fangs, and the fact that he may desire her blood as well. Her stepmother had a good point, but Cindy was done caring about what other people thought of her. The king truly desired her, and deep down, Cindy wanted to become his queen. "I'm not marrying that obese man just so I can work on his farm like a slave. You can't just sell me off like livestock. You have no right. I received an invitation to the ball, so I had every right to be there, same as you, and I didn't need your permission. What happened with the king wasn't planned. It just happened, and it was the most amazing night of my life," Cindy said, wanting to underscore the last part. Her stepmother pursed her lips further, staring at Cindy as if she were prepared to strangle her. Cindy cursed the day her stepmother entered her life and married her father. Everything would have been different if they'd never met. She loved her father dearly, but he was gone, and she had no other family. "No, my darling girl, you aren't the true owner of the house, or the estate, yet. There is a clause in the will that states you must marry a respectable man and bring in a steady income in order to take it away from me by the time you turn 25. You will marry Launders, and you will lose all rights to this estate. And as soon as the king's guards find his beloved painting in your room, you will be marked as nothing more than a common thief. They obviously won't have a choice but to lock you up in prison. On top of that, no one in the kingdom would ever agree to accept a queen who's a prostitute and works in a local brothel," her stepmother said, with smug satisfaction in her tone. It took Cindy a little while to go over what Ida had said. Then she laughed, thinking that her stepmother had gone mad. Caspian would never believe such lies. "I have no idea what you're talking about," she said, but her voice was small. "I'm talking about the rare painting that has been in his private collection for years. Unfortunately, the piece was stolen last night, so imagine my surprise when I discovered it in your room as I went to wake you up this morning. The king doesn't tolerate thievery, and your reputation precedes you." Cindy's jaw dropped. Was this even possible? Was her stepmother capable of something so vicious? She must have hired someone, or perhaps she knew someone who worked at the castle. Cindy had been out and about for a while, so that had given Ida plenty enough time to set her up, to make it appear as if she had truly stolen the painting. She knew exactly which piece of art Ida was talking about. She swallowed, unable to speak. Shock rippled through her, lapping at her sides. She felt sick, recognizing the warmth and tingling across the nape of her neck, as she and the king had stared at that painting. This couldn't be happening. Caspian had shown it to her just before they had become lost in each other's arms. On top of everything else, she was accusing her of being a prostitute. For a second, Cindy couldn't breathe. "You know good and well I didn't steal that painting. This is a setup, and I will explain myself to him," she said, but her voice vibrated with emotion. "And I'm not a prostitute, stepmother. That accusation alone sounds completely ridiculous." She was losing her confidence a little. The fairy, Martha, had helped her last night to get to the ball, but Ida couldn't have known a thing about it. Her stepmother rose from her seat, went to the cabinet, and took something out of the drawer, then handed it to Cindy. "Inside, there is a lease of the local brothel, and your name is listed on one of the documents. Imagine what the entire kingdom will think when they learn of such a shocking revelation," Ida said. "You know yourself how fast news travels around here, and once this rumour spreads to the king, he will never want to see or look at your face again. He won't be able to marry someone who stole from him. I have a witness who can confirm that he saw you leaving the king's private chamber, carrying the painting. I want this house, Cindy, and I'm willing to do anything within my power to keep it. Your father had a weak mind, and he spoiled you rotten, gave you everything you ever wanted. Then you didn't even appreciate him. You ran away with that highwayman, and it was already too late for me to step in then. I've never spoiled my girls. They're well behaved, and they know what's acceptable and what's not. I've tried to keep you on the right path over the years, but it seems that I've failed." Cindy started looking through the papers as her heart was racing away. She had no idea who'd told her stepmother about Martha, or the fact that she'd gone to the brothel last night. Her stomach dropped when she saw her name at the bottom of the document, along with the names of the other girls from the brothel. She wasn't too concerned about being called a prostitute. It was the fact that her stepmother had gone to such lengths to destroy her already bruised reputation. This time, forever. This time, Mr. Johnson wouldn't be able to help her if that painting was indeed in her room. Her short romance with the king and her fight for the estate was now over. No one would be able to help her now. Her life was truly over.